So I'm going to talk about today is Words Make Worlds. And I got that title from a good friend of mine who was the director of Pathways Integration at a place called Copper Ridge where I worked. And Copper Ridge was a residential community in Carroll County. It was everyone there had a neurocognitive challenge, over 125 people at its heyday. So we really got to see a lot and experience what some people were going through as I worked there. But Renee Joyner was her name, and I talked with her the other day, and she said, words make worlds. I still use that. So no matter what your strategies are, I think the big idea is that what you say really can affect and change a person's life in that moment. So first of all is how we call people by their diagnosis, right? My name is not dementia. I have a name, and please use it. So my name is Laura Gillen, and I'm a gerontologist, an educator, and a care partner. I've had family members who have worked through the Alzheimer's journey. So a word that we use to talk about how people's days are going is often called quality of life, right? That's quality of life measures, that's a research term. But I want to throw out to you another word, and it's really about individualized care. It's about meaningful living. And quality of life to me is about often self-directed living. That's what we kind of cherish as a person. So we're going to think about how we can create these concepts of meaningful and self-directed living through our words. So today we're going to reflect a little bit on who we are, our personal values, beliefs, and cultural heritage and the people we serve or love affects meaningful living and how you interact with others. And we're going to talk about cultural humility and the importance of trust in a relationship. So how many of us know someone impacted by a neurocognitive challenge? Or if you're a caregiver, could you raise your hand? See how many caregivers we have. And then how about aging services professional of some kind? Okay, most of the audience. So when you hear the word dementia, how does that make you feel? What kind of emotions or thoughts does that evoke? Sadness? Say it again.
Oh, it's a downer.
It's a downer, yeah. It's been called the most feared diagnosis of our time. It's the sense of really losing who we are, losing our mind. So we have to keep that in mind when we talk about the diagnosis and that term. So there was a woman I met at the Senior Expo. I go out and do like the mini cog, it's just basic assessment. Most people do really well and they're reassured that, it's just normal forgetfulness. But she sat down and she was trembling as she sat, and I said, "What's wrong?" She's like, "I'm really worried about how I'm going to do on this test." It's a test, really. We all get test anxiety. And I thought, oh, most people are fine. She's like, no, my primary care doctor referred me to Hopkins. I have a problem, and we're going to go through that. It was going to be 3 months until she could actually see a doctor, to talk about what she was going through. And she was trembling, as I said, and she didn't do well on the test. And she explained that, her family wasn't really on board with all this, and they were arguing among themselves about whether she really had anything wrong with her, and she's trying to plan for the future and not really getting a lot of support. They're all in their own worlds, and we don't really want to deal with this right now. So it's just that loneliness, that isolation that word conveys. You have diabetes, okay, you can manage it, you get help, but in this way, and with this word, not so much. And that's kind of the promise of this new guide model that CMMS is coming out with, is really trying to coordinate that care and give people the support they need early on, when they have these questions like, what is this going to mean in my life? So So our goal today and the focus for those we love and serve is maybe different than what the typical goals of clinical care is. It's really to honor and support each person's unique preferences, their patterns of living, to help them experience meaning and joy in life. And you know, when you walk into a lot of communities, I don't use the F word. I don't say facilities. I don't use that. Communities, you know, these places where people live, you don't usually see that, right? So we're going to talk about how, you know, the whole system needs to change. We need to do culture change, but what can we do in our interactions? And that's the words we use. So that's why I chose to focus on our words. So here's a photo. What does this photo convey to you?
Joy.
Joy.
Freedom.
Freedom. There's like a relationship there, right? People are outside enjoying like a moment, right, in life. It's simple, but it's impactful. So when I think about meaningful living, I kind of think about this photo and what that would mean for every person. What things bring you joy and meaning in life?
Family.
Your family, right? Anybody else? What brings you joy?
Work.
Your what?
My work.
Your work.
Friends.
Friends.
Being able to provide.
Being able to
Help other people.
helping others, right?
My pets.
Oh, your pets, yeah, that's good, right. So just because we have dementia doesn't mean that we lose our interest in doing those things that bring us joy, but sometimes it's hard to find opportunities to actually achieve that. So you can see that who we are, and this is just looking at cultural identity, health beliefs and practices is one tiny piece of that pie, right? We're so much more than our health diagnosis. Sometimes that's all we're known as, though, as a patient, not just a person, right? Do we really need to know what we had for breakfast yesterday? Can we remember those 3 or 4 words that somebody threw out to us on that mini cog? You know, what if we're distracted that day or tired or upset? You know, we use these tests and these tools, but how we're known and our personal identity is not just about what our diagnosis is. So words make worlds. Inclusive language acknowledges our diversity, is respectful, and it's sensitive to those differences between us, and promotes equal opportunities to achieve those things that make us different than another person. And our goal here is not for me to give you a list of things to say or not say, you know, what words are good, and I will tell you some of my preferences, but we want you to really take away how are you going to be the change in your world. You know, there might be structural or, you know, clinical words that you have to throw around in certain situations, but are you really using that plain language? Are you taking the time to describe to somebody what you're talking about? Even something like a word, someone was saying this morning, rehab. What does it mean to go to rehab? When you ask a person, well, do you want to go to rehab or do you want to go to assisted living? Well, those aren't really descriptive of what the environment might be like. So, and I want to ask you to use cultural humility as your guiding light. And that's not being the expert, not being culturally competent, but it's about accepting what we don't know and what we have not experienced and recognize that somebody else's experience are true and valid. That's cultural humility. So when we think about the differences between us, we have to understand when we use terms and labels, which I hate labels, but when you talk about a specific cultural race or ethnicity, the differences between two people in a culture can be greater than two people of different cultures. You know, we can't make those assumptions, those stereotypes, those generalizations. And there are very much individual variations between how people interact with their environment and how their environment influences their reaction. And I didn't use the word behaviors because we like to throw out the word behaviors, you know, difficult behaviors, but isn't it really a reaction? It's a reaction to something in the environment. So rather than, compartmentalizing somebody's behavior, let's talk about their reaction to the situation. Those are our words that we use. So there's lots of influences on our social identity, and some of them are more impactful than others, you might say. But what if you were, an American Indian who was in a boarding school? A refugee who experienced persecution or displacement? Even the immigrants that are coming over the border now, do you think they really wanted to leave their home and leave everything? To come here, there must have been something that forced that issue. War veterans, there's a lot of older veterans in our communities right now. There was not a lot of sharing of experiences in those groups. Socio-political issues like the wall. What if you had relatives that live in Mexico and you're hearing about a wall that's going to make it impossible for you to visit? Recognizing same-sex relationships. People didn't legally have the opportunity to represent or advocate for their loved one until pretty recently. Basic values about who makes the decisions. Is it independent for the person? Is it family? And then cultural practices like personal space, eye contact, all those things are important. So we want to kind of think past those labels. So some of the influences on the care we get are health beliefs. In some cultures, people believe that actually talking about a possible poor health outcome will cause that outcome to occur. So they may not want to have that conversation. In some cultures, the family is the decision maker, and they kind of shield their loved one from hearing all the details of what possibly could happen. Religious belief might affect somebody's interest or willingness to have a certain healthcare treatment. Maybe cultural practices would be their first choice. And then dietary customs. We have this kind of American diet that is often prescribed as the best way to health, and it really minimizes or does not honor the practice of what they grew up eating and what was common in their family. It's a cultural custom. And then the interpersonal customs as well. So how do we find out what matters most? Well, it's kind of like being a detective, right? Being a good listener is definitely the first step. So you can use those communication strategies that you've learned about today as well to kind of get to the heart of how you're going to create that meaningful living and joy in a person's life. So I found a study. It's one of the only ones that is out there, and it was like the Voices of Dementia, where someone actually captured the words of, and they specifically were looking at people who are considered from marginalized groups, certain races or cultures, and people near the end in the more serious or later stages of dementia. So this is hearing from people with ADRD about what's most meaningful to them. So there are strips of paper on your table, and we're going to start with letter A. They're quality of life indicators, but I call them meaningful living indicators. So the number one, A is the number one most important thing to those people that were surveyed. And here it is in their own words. So if someone has like any of the A's, if you could read an A.
You have an A.
Okay.
How a person reacts to you can make you very unhappy.
How a person reacts to you can make you very unhappy.
I have one.
Okay.
I feel lonely because I cannot speak English and I do not know how to communicate with them, being the neighbors.
Thank you. Got one? Thank you.
Very important, very important. I've got wonderful friends. I've got people who will put themselves out for all kinds of things just for sheer friendship, and I feel guilty always saying no. we won't do that, and so on and so forth. But you'll be amazed how people want to help their friends.
Anything else? Yeah.
What upsets me tremendously is when I see other people who are being taken advantage of by people around them.
Any other A's? Okay. Yes, sir.
I would be lost without my wife. My wife is everything. So is my family, really. My wife has to do everything for me. When she's not there, I miss her. I hate it when she goes out. I can't wait. Very important to have friends.
Yeah. So what was key? What was the number one most meaningful thing in life? Relationships, right? Yep. Family, friends, people who care. So the importance of relationships and someone to talk to is a basic human need, and dementia doesn't change that. So people have a need for social interaction every day. In terms of preventing dementia, they did a study. And so I want to ask you, how many minutes of social interaction do you think is necessary to actually boost your cognitive health? And this would be for all of us. How many minutes a day of social interaction do you need? 11? 100? 60? 60? Well, I'll tell you, it's 10. 10 minutes a day. So if you can sit down with somebody and make eye contact, and how about a gentle touch and a story? How are you today? That's actually shown to boost cognitive health, not just maintain it. So we're social beings for the most part. You know, we like to be around people. We need those relationships, and I also talk about the animal relationships too. I mean, how hard it is for people to leave their pets. And my mother-in-law has one of those animated, animatronic kind of cats. She feeds the cat, she pets the cat. It's the best thing in her life right now because she can give care. She's not always the receiver of care. She's the giver of care. And that's number one thing. So next are the B's. Can someone read B's if you have a B slip? Go ahead.
I want to keep my own environment that I'm in because I am familiar with that.
Familiar with the environment, yep. Any other
Have an
B's?
environment, what you know.
An environment, what you know, right.
If you ain't contented, you are miserable about everything. Wow.
Okay, yep.
Oh, there's nothing better than peace and quiet to be happy and comfortable. But if you ain't got peace, you're upset. And when you've got peace and quiet, you don't have nothing in the mind.
So, okay, detectives, what's the second most important thing that they indicated? The environment, right? Right. So it's really about maintaining a sense of home, isn't it? We kind of create these home-like environments in our communities. We even tell people sometimes. This morning a woman said, well, they let us bring in the furniture. We brought photographs, brought the blanket. And another woman said, wow, I didn't do that for my husband. I kind of feel bad, like they never encouraged it. But those things help, the material things. It's more than that, though. Isn't it the feeling? What means home to you? Is it really about the things around you? What is it?
The people.
The people. You can't always bring them with you, but you can visit, right? You can bring them. How many times you never really see little kids in the community, but how meaningful that is? What else does home mean? Right, so it could be your pillow, it could be the fragrance in the air. What brings you comfort, right? That's what you would want to take with you, I think.
A certain sense of, I guess, control over your environment.
Even that, right? The control of the temperature.
The food, the smell, the belongings with you. I mean, I think that's, you can have control over those. And I just think it's very important to know that you're not helpless, and that other people I mean, you're still able to make your own decisions and other people aren't
Yeah,
going to
yeah, yep.
dictate.
How many times do we use the word admitted to a community? You know, are you admitted to your home? No, it's a home, right? So consider that in the words that we use. Okay, next is C, I believe. Yeah, anybody have C's?
Question, what would be a better word then? I mean, even when you're discharging and you tell a family you'll they've been admitted to Rikers or
You're coming here to live. This is the place that's your home, or let's talk about where you're going to live, you know, kind of thing, or what's your neighborhood going to be like. Talk about, you know, in terms, we used to call them, like neighborhoods was a friendlier word.
yeah.
Just the people around you, you know? Yeah. So are we on C or D? I don't even remember. C, okay.
No, C.
No C's? How many got a C?
Yes, we got to.
Okay.
I'm very conscious of keeping fit. I mean, I do yoga. We try to get out and walk every day. So I'm very conscious of the fact that keeping the body in a fit state is important.
Mm-hmm.
Physical health to me is very important. I can do things on my own, like go out. I can get the bus. I can even take my grandson out on my own. And at the moment, physical health is more important because of my grandson, because he is 3 and I want to see him get older and older.
Right. So of course we're talking about physical health. You know, how many times do a person who likes to wander or the elopement risk, maybe that's the person who used to like to go on a walk every day. And this is how they just want to go out and have a walk. You know, the terms we use versus maybe that's just a person that likes to get out, and maybe we should try to figure out how to get them outside for a walk, you know? How many times do you see any kind of weights or, you know, chair exercises? I think, you know, the more and more care you receive, the less and less fit you become a lot of times, and how important that is to stay strong for the caregivers, to be able to help and be as independent as possible and as healthy and be able to transfer and, you know, so many things to stay fit.
When I was taking classes at McDaniel, and we had to write a lot of papers. And one of the papers I wrote actually was introducing some degree of sports and competition within, I mean, people at various stages of dementia. A friend of mine, her husband was probably in the middle stages, and he was out there still running 5Ks, because that's what he always did, and it gave them a sense of mastery.
Purpose, yeah.
I did a lot of research on that. It was
Really
a lot of
interesting.
times people are treated like they're frail.
Can't
but
do.
these people, I mean, you know, in some of these adult daycares, I mean, some of them would have, you know, free throw competitions.
Yeah.
People loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great, right? We don't change just because of the diagnosis again, but how well do we actually support that in our communities? How often, you know, people are placed in a chair and say, "Oh, don't get up, you might hurt yourself," you know, because we're worried about the fall risk. We're worried about people hurting themselves but not really expressing themselves. So, next. I went a little too far. I think that's D, right? Does anybody have a D?
We got a D.
Okay.
I don't think we have a D.
No? D's?
I strongly believe that humor with people is important. If you can enjoy a joke or a pleasantry with people, that's a lift, you know, to me.
That kind of surprising, isn't it? I mean, the ability to laugh, to enjoy a joke, to have some humor in your day, that was pretty high up on the list. Number 4, that's just something I felt was kind of missing in the communities I've been in, you know? The ability to laugh and have a good joke, but all right.
And I have one. Oh, it is very important to have a laugh. Something that can make you laugh, and being made to laugh is very important.
Yeah, a little lightheartedness, right? in this dark, dark world of dementia. Oh my goodness. Okay, so next one. I think it's E. Okay.
I have one. It says, yes, I like looking after myself, doing things for myself, seeing that I'm respectable.
Doing things for myself. Yep. Any others? E.
Okay, I have one. I have got a desire to have more freedom, but something would happen and it would be chaos in the end. I would go to the football games and do everything I used to do, and that would be a big mess.
I think it is very important because if you have your own independence, then you feel that you are not dependent on other people. And then it's good to know that you have got that form of independence. I mean, I go out and I feel drive, and it is nice to have that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, important if you're free to do what you want. You can do things, otherwise you can't do nothing.
And I have one.
Mm-hmm.
Very important, you can look after yourself, because if you do, you don't have no problems. But if you can't look after yourself, you've got problems. Someone has to look after you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
When the day comes that when the day comes that I have got to start asking for help, and if the independent is taken away, then I hope it is only taken away from me in the right way. I would like to think that I could still be consulted and still have some say in my independence.
Right, right. Still be consulted. Yep. So we were talking, of course, about independence, right? Freedom. This is what we say when we get up in the morning, right? I can do whatever I want today. I can stay in bed if I don't have to go to work, or maybe I want to read a book. And so the choices we freely make each day, not according to a routine or a schedule or a list of activities, when to wake up, what to wear, what to eat, how to spend the day, who's around us, what brings us comfort, what things might change as we lose cognitive function. So we might call people difficult or belligerent, or say they are having behavior issues when they don't comply. They don't do what we think they should be doing in that moment or that day, right? So it's precious, and it's important that people maintain that independence and freedom as much as possible. And when people are uncooperative or difficult, we say, you know, they're expressing their desire to do things on their own terms or in their own way, then it's really our job to figure out what's underneath that. What are they really trying to communicate? Maybe they just don't feel like doing that right now. Maybe they're bored. Maybe they need more time. Maybe they're hungry. Ever been hangry? Really? Like, how do you don't care. You just give me something to eat, right? Okay, next one. Is it F? Yes, ma'am.
My doctor asked me a question. I'm trying to find answers to sort out my brain, and he just says, stop there, stop now. All I want from you is yes or no. I don't want waffling.
Wow.
People like myself cannot give an answer and a yes or no. You need the time to try and think through the question, and believe it or not, after somebody has asked the question, you might have forgot half the question they have asked you.
Yes.
So communicating, I think, is very important.
Okay. Any others?
I think it would be nice if people gave you the courtesy of time to finish what you were trying to say. So communicating, I think, is very important, but I think it's nice if people give the benefit.
Right. So what are we talking about here? What's the big indicator?
Communication.
Right. So we used to have a little rule of thumb, and I'm gonna give you the experience of it about how long you should give as a minimum for a person to answer a question that you ask. So I'm going to start my timer now. So say you ask me, oh, do you want vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream today? Let me think. Still thinking. Gosh, I can't even remember. What did they ask me? I don't know.
10 seconds.
20 seconds. That's all that was 20 seconds. How often we're just in such a hurry. Give me your answer. Give me it now. I need to check this off the list. But yeah, minimum 20 seconds to let someone collect their thoughts and try to even focus on what you were asking. And you know, there can be health consequences when we don't take that time to really listen to what someone's saying. I mean, maybe they're in pain, and we're not giving them the time to really express that. There's so many things that if we just wait a little bit longer, warm and genuine communication. In the Latino culture, I think it's pronounced personalismo, you know, really starting off that way, because, you know, they always say people don't necessarily remember what you say, but they will remember how you made them feel. And you can see that, you know, in relationships that, you know, a resident may have with a caregiver. You know, if somebody comes around they don't like, they're going to let you know. My aunt was an unmarried woman, you know, never married, lived alone. And so my mom would go and visit, and they would tell her, well, Flo doesn't want us to bathe her, you know. She doesn't comply. She's resistant to care, right? And my mom was like, why would that be, you know? So she later found out that it was a man that was bathing my aunt. And a woman who had not been touched by a man, basically, you know, and that was all resolved when my mom was the one that said, you know, can you have a woman bathe her, you know, so just simple things like that is part of being a detective. Okay, next. I'm going to have, what are we, like maybe G's? Yeah.
Because I have got this vascular dementia, I'm not suddenly altering my ways. I'm still me. I'm still loving, caring, and I still have feelings, like we have talked about, and I would like to think that I haven't changed myself.
Still a person in there, right? It's not the diagnosis. Anybody else? Yeah, so that's the sense of personal identity, of being a unique human being. So first of all is just getting on board with that whole idea of the diagnosis, right? Being able to say, I've got dementia, and this is going to really affect my life. What we can do is really help that person with some coping strategies by keeping the other aspects, the other things that are important and meaningful in their life in place. Providing reassurance, maybe quiet and calming environment, things to do, and let's not call them activities, right? Because I don't call myself like, oh, I'm going to go do an activity, right? I'm going to go read a book, or I'm going to go out and take a little walk, and, you know, just things I like to do in the day that bring me pleasure. And playing with animals, being outside with nature, you know, all those things, listening to the kind of music I want to listen to that make me who I am. Try to find out those things. Okay, next. H, I think. Have a couple more.
Another way to look at it would be, what would happen if you weren't busy at all? What would you be doing? You would have to be looking for fun or looking to do things.
Ma'am? Anybody have an H? Yeah, go ahead.
I think you people should put dementia to one side, focus on something they would like to be. And I know I do painting. 10 years ago, I couldn't paint a ceiling. So focus on a skill and say, that's me. I'm a helper at the church. That's important to me.
Right. Could you imagine a day when you really didn't have anything to do? I mean, some people talk about, I can't wait till I retire, won't have anything to do. That's really not a blessing, is it? I mean, oh my goodness, sitting there 24 hours a day without a thing to do other than wait Wait for the next thing. Wait for the next meal. That sense of identity we get from our jobs, from being an artist, that the hobbies that we have, and really trying to find out what those are and support a person.
I'd just like to make a comment that I think we have to think that there are some people who are really glad to not do that. I mean, I've come across, they love it. You go visit them in nursing home. They say, it's so good to just sit here and do nothing.
Really?
And,
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we have to not put our expectations on it.
Certainly.
I had a man that I put into a nursing home one time who had been in and out of homelessness and poverty, and he said, Mrs. Wilkinson, you just put me in the nicest hotel. She said they have blueberry pancakes here and everything. So we've got to remember that we're talking about our values.
Yeah,
but for some
right.
of the people,
it's okay to take a rest, right? It's okay to take a rest, right? Very good point.
Have a place to live and food to eat.
Very good point. So I just want to mention about being having support and family and relationships, but LGBTQ plus elders are more likely to live alone and have no caregiving support or network, and they really are at risk for health outcomes at higher rates of depression, suicidal thoughts and attempts, substance use and abuse. Just something to be aware of. Let's see what else. Experiences of harassment, discrimination, and stigma. And there was actually, this was new to me, HIV-associated dementia, cognitive impairment with motor dysfunction, speech problems, and changes in behavior. I had not heard of that, but there is a type of dementia associated with HIV.
They've also found in the LGBT, the older adults, that they're facing discrimination because of their lifestyle, they're facing discrimination because of their age, but they also face discrimination from the young LGBT community because when they were young, they were forced to stay in the closet and hide their identity, whereas now, I mean, people are out and they're proud of who they are, and they actually, a lot of the younger LGBT community faults the older adults for not being out and proud and for closeting and for being ashamed, and so they actually are discriminated against
within their own community.
Older adults in their own community.
Right. And it was also something I learned is that like the deaf culture, that's a completely different culture as well. And I thought, wow, how well do we support a deaf person with dementia? That would be another special way that we'd have to really accommodate. But all right, so the next one is I. Anybody have an I?
I really need the church. I love the church. I feel happy. I see God.
And we would have these like interfaith kind of Christian services, and everybody would, be encouraged to come. And then I just remember a woman saying, "But I'm Jewish." It's like not everybody wants to be part of it as well. So you really got to know a person and honor their It's an important part, especially a lot of older people are still connected to their faith community. And I know, like, from my own, they'll have volunteers come or, lay people, but I'm like, it would speak volumes if the pastor actually came around. That's who the person really remembers and knows. So maybe encouraging them to make a special visit to someone, that would really be meaningful. Okay. So I think this might be the last one. Last one I think is I or J. J. Okay. Okay.
All right. People think as soon as you mention dementia, they look at you and go, there's nothing wrong with him. He's milking the system. They look at me and they think I'm milking the system. They don't know what is going on.
it would be nice if a lot of people had more understanding and appreciate what you've got. Like I was in a town the other Saturday and this other lady started laughing because the way I was trying to struggle to talk, and that started to make me feel uncomfortable. And I thought if she only understood, and perhaps she would stand there and laugh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have got 2 daughters and a son. One is still on the border of denial, but friends, while you think they are your friends, you walk down the road and they will walk over the other side. And you walk in a bar and they walk down the other end of the bar. It is very, very important because to me, that is what everyone wants, and it's important to be treated fairly.
We have one. If you say to someone, can you wait a couple of minutes, I've got dementia and I want to explain, they look at you and think there is nothing wrong with you, you should be able to talk. Then again, you get some who go, how are you, really loud, and you think, grr, I'm not that bad.
Yep. So all the stigma that accompanies dementia. So when I was in long-term care, I would witness sometimes how these friendships dissolved. You know, there was independent living, assisted living, and then, you know, memory care, specialized care. And I would say, well, how's your friend doing now that they moved to assisted living? And she would say, oh, I can't go over there. It's too sad. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? She's your friend. No. I think I just don't want to see that as my future. You know, that even though there was no door between the two, there was just this invisible line that sometimes would not be crossed. One woman called it being on death row. You know, because that was going to be her last stop, you know, and it's just kind of understanding the minds of people and just kind of, we're talking about meaningful living and words make worlds, right? Stepping into the shoes of that person for a minute. So key to this, I think, is really the importance of building trust. And it helps people develop their coping skills, supporting engagement, better outcomes for everybody when people work together. People will be more likely to participate in research, and it really builds caring and safe relationships. My granddaughters play this game, do you trust me? And they get that little sparkle in your eyes. Can I trust you? And they'll start falling backwards, you know. You better catch me. And that's kind of what I feel like it is, you know, when we start to build these bridges, these relationships with people, how do we connect? It's really about trust, isn't it? The safety that someone feels with you. So why would there be mistrust? Well, historical atrocities. Pictures and statues of who you see in the lobby don't look like me. I don't know if this is a place for me. Leaders of faith-based and community-based organizations may not have been consulted about this whole project. Some people have limited technology access. They can't go and surf the internet for information to learn more. Helicopter research, when researchers go in for a couple weeks, they talk to people, do some clinical stuff, and leave. And it's like, well, what did that do for our community? So some of the reasons for mistrust. An intervention I read about was a 3-session intervention. The first, the church's faith-based leader was there, a physician who was a church member, a health educator who discussed the pros and cons of an advance directive. The second session, they did step-by-step on how to fill out the form. It wasn't online. Assistance in completing it, and then there was some time for them to go back to the family and say, is this something I really need? Is this something we need to talk about? And I know Kate covered that in her session, how to do that. But, so building trust is about being trustworthy, right? Listening. Sometimes we have to give it time. You know, you're not super friendly with the first person that walks down the street or moves into your neighborhood, maybe. Maybe you're a friendly person, but you know, when you encounter different care providers during the day, different schedules, it takes you time to really build that relationship with another person. So I'm going to talk about positive words for a couple minutes. So going back to that words make worlds themes again, positive words are like sunshine on a cloudy day, right? A compliment, your eyes are so blue today. You're so kind to others. What a beautiful outfit you selected today. Or approval by highlighting their strengths. You really struggle with that, but look how successful you were with this. Praise. Self-disclosure and saying, I'm happy to be here taking care of you today. You're not a burden to me. I'm happy to be here to help you. That really goes a long way, I think. I'm grateful to have time to spend talking with you. And minimizing blame, removing the words, non-compliant or uncooperative. The water spilled, but we can clean it up together. Personalizing is, she's an artist and she loves to paint. Or she is so proud of her daughter. Let me tell you about her daughter. She has a great faith in God and her ability to keep her strong. And tell the truth. I have this story. I saw a woman who I had known from church, and she was in our community one day. I said, what happened? And she had, been in a bad situation at a fall and was confused. And she was talking about how, I said, well, how are they treating you? And she's like, they're all going to hell. And I said, why? She said, they're all a bunch of liars. And I said, what do you mean? She had a feeling that she needed to go to the airport to meet her daughter. She had to get on the plane. And she's like, I can see the bus stop right outside. And it was the entrance to the community. There were benches there. She thought it was a bus stop. And she said, I keep asking them, could you please tell me how to get out of here so I can get to the bus stop? And they all say they don't know. They say they don't know. And I was like, oh my goodness, like that little lie, or telling her that they'll tell her later, or I'm too busy right now to take you. So I took her out there and we sat on the bench for a while, and I said, I don't think there's any bus coming, right now, but we'll sit here for a while. And it just was that fact that, I know some people say, oh, it's just an innocent lie or a little lie to get them to do something and make it easier on me. But there's no such thing as a therapeutic lie. I just say, you better tell the truth. People might get upset when they ask, well, what really happened to my son? Did he die? Are you going to lie? Or are you just going to say, here's what happened. Here's what happened to him. And that kind of reinforces that the memory they have maybe is true. Instead of saying, oh, no, your family's fine. He just doesn't call because, he's busy. Just think about that a little bit, the words we use. Okay, negative words. When we say, well, she insists her pain out of 10, like it can't be, that we question their credibility. Maybe we say, instead of saying he's not taking his meds again, well, he's making his own choices about whether the pros outweigh the cons of that particular medication. They can't do this, they can't do that. Well, maybe they need help with some personal care things. She won't change her diet. She's acting against medical advice. Well, maybe she's just living life on her own terms. Can't do the exercises. Well, maybe he's choosing to do something else in this moment. Her daughter told her to go outside for a walk, but she says she doesn't feel like it. Well, maybe she's making her own choices about what she wants to do today. So let's not use the words combative, disinterested, unapproachable, and let's figure out what the real need is. What's that unmet need in the moment? And finally, so our summary is, we know there are stereotypes and differences and beliefs, but just try to be more inclusive and really think about those words that we use. Don't make assumptions, just treat everyone as an individual and ask people. If the person's not really saying too much, ask the loved one, well, what do you think is best in this situation? What kind of routine might work? Or when do they like to get up in the morning? And be humble and respectful, that cultural humility we talked about, and be less authoritarian and recognize that the person is really the expert about what they like to do in a day, what they want for their life, and try to provide those opportunities. And then just try to be a lifelong learner. learn more about, seek those opportunities for joy and meaning that we talked about early on. So there's some evaluations in the program book that you can evaluate your interactions or conversations with a person. You can kind of self-assess yourself when you have a chance, and just appreciate your time and attention today. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll stand at the back. I know we got to move on because we have a little break here for a few minutes, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them if I can. But thank you.